Hello there. I'm Holly Schroeder, President and CEO of the Santa Clarita Valley Economic Development Corporation. In today's podcast, you're going to hear the final segment from the business panel discussion that we recorded live at our Economic Outlook event in September 2021. The business panel included our business leaders from Princess Cruises, meaning Jan Schwartz, from Sunkist Growers, Christian Harris, from Williams Homes, Lance Williams, and from Black Knight Energy, Todd Stevens served as our moderator. Today they discussed the supply chain issues that have been facing our area and really summarized key lessons learned from the past 18 months in dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. Please enjoy today's segment and check out the other 3 segments on our podcast, SCV Means Business.
Lance, as we've worked through this, we've heard you talk about supply chain issues. I think nobody's business on stage is more impacted by basically our manufacturing operation, supply chain issues. How has it evolved from 18 months ago to today? And, we saw this huge spike in lumber prices that has now come down. And a lot of people say that was artificially created by, because some of the Canadians. But it'd be interesting to hear your perspective on, as you talked about earlier, it's just hard to get some of the supplies. And how is that going to remedy itself as we have this critical housing shortage in California? The governor's promised all these houses, but, can we get all the stuff we need around the world in this, global supply chain to make this work?
Yeah, so the challenges in our supply chain. We're fully vertically integrated, so we have to take delivery of and install every component that goes into a home, and every home's really handmade. And lumber is the largest single component. So that was a huge deal. It's the biggest piece of material that goes into the house, and it quadrupled in cost for a short period of time. But the folks who were growing the trees weren't seeing any increase. As a matter of fact, there's lots of trees. There just was problems getting those trees milled and delivered. So some of it was speculation, of course, and it's really spiked and then came right back down now to more normalized numbers. But beyond that, it's things like garage doors. The garage door manufacturer might have had a shutdown, or everybody who had a house, who had an old garage door, decided when they were at home they were going to buy a new garage door. So they did. So we're driving around the Western United States looking for garage doors to put into our houses so that we can deliver the garage door or deliver a home, because some jurisdictions are like, hey, you got to have a garage door before we're going to give you a certificate of occupancy and let that family who's trying to get into their house close escrow, move to their house. So those are the kind of things that we see, and it's moved up and down the supply chain. So it was lumber and it was, concrete and appliances, air conditioning parts. We're putting in horizontal improvements here at Williams Ranch, and it was, water main parts and pieces, ductile iron, which has been around forever. We had to scour the country for parts and pieces to put in a water main, and on eBay looking for parts and pieces to complete a water main system for a major community. So it's been, you adapt to the environment and you have a great team that gets it done. And going back to talking about teams and kind of being a little, sometimes being lonely, we've really, for all of our employees, we've asked them to identify a mentor beyond just a friend, so that everybody at the company, including myself, has a mentor that we can talk to and discuss the way we feel, what's going on, and also help us with the path forward in our careers, from the entry-level person, an intern, all the way up to me. Wow. Everybody gets a mentor.
That's great. Jan, you probably had enormous supply chain issues too, because I know I went early March, I was in Miami, and you see all those cruise boats just parked offshore, mm-hmm. and being maintained, and they're every now and then. But I'm just thinking about it from, you have 30 plus ships around the world that were just on pause, and then something breaks, because it always breaks. How do the supply chain issues affect your business?
Our supply chain team has just done a phenomenal job. I don't think we can understate the challenge associated with restarting ships. Typically in a given year, we would launch 1 to 3 new ships, because as you can imagine, we have to crew up over 1,000 teammates. We have to get all of the food, parts, you name it. And so now we have to basically restart an entire 90 ship fleet for Carnival Corporation, 35 for us. And what's remarkable is the level of disturbance that's gone on in the supply chain in terms of businesses closing, things just not available, orders being short, et cetera. And so when we were ready, game on, it's time to go again, the supply chain department was, calling and finding, the whole phones had been disconnected, right? And so to your point, I think it's really, this time is such a credit to the teams and their personal resilience and agility and creativity and, piecing together solutions. When we launched the ships out of Seattle, we actually had employees going to every major Costco and grocery store to top up specific wine selections because distributors had shut down. And it's that kind of can-do attitude, like nothing's going to stop us, make this happen. And so really, I just think the amount of teamwork demonstrated during this period has been phenomenal.
So Christian, probably not on the supply chain side, but I think it goes back to workforce and distribution. You just hear about there's not enough truck drivers, not enough people to help you distribute your product. And, California, between the San Joaquin Valley and down here, it's probably one of the breadbaskets of our country. And so we think about, how did you get impacted at all, your business, from being able to actually distribute your product and get it out to the grocery stores?
Well, our biggest issue actually was international. So we ship about 40% of our citrus to Southeast Asia, Australia, and even into Europe. And that's a bbig market. The Sunkist brand holds well around the world. And this vessel issue coming off the West Coast, it has crippled us. There's 54 boats, I believe, as of yesterday morning, still anchored off the coast. We can't get enough containers to put the fruit in. The coordinating between the longshoremen, the containers, the vessels has been just terrible. And then even then, at times, we've managed to get boats loaded that they're heading out, and then maybe the crew gets COVID, that gets pushed out for a couple of weeks. Produce does not get any better with age. We are not wine, unfortunately. And so we had entire write-offs, millions of dollars worth of fruit that didn't make it where it was supposed to go. So we have actually had some pretty material supply chain issues. And, we've been having meetings with all the major carrier lines over the last month here. And in fact, our CEO is flying to New York next week to meet with one of the bigger ones. And we're trying to figure out how to get through it. But with the outlook and the way things are moving around and consumption being what it is right now, we really don't see this thing getting better for a year. And for our growers who deliberately farm harder, they do things differently, they prune differently to create a product that will sell well for a premium in export markets. It's a real disappointment for them not to be able to get that fruit to that market. But we're not the only ones seeing it. We have growing partners in Australia. I was on the phone with them just a couple of days ago, and because they can't get fruit out of their country right now, and their population is obviously pretty small, relatively speaking, to what they produce, they're having to sell mandarins for 10 cents a pound. It's so far below production.
Wow.
Because it's that or drop it on the ground. So I think we're all feeling it, and the aftershock of it's going to last with us a while. But I guess it's a brave new world. We're going to figure our way through it. But yeah, we've definitely been impacted by supply chain, but more export. I think the government were helpful for us in terms of, maybe being a little bit more flexible on driver hours, a little bit. So domestically keeping the food chain running was such a high priority. But outside of the country, I think we've still got a pretty rocky road ahead. And you take it one way and I take it the other. And I don't think either one of us could be real happy for a while still. So.
Well, there's one other topic I really want to talk about, but we could talk about that for another hour. So I think we'll go to kind of key lessons learned. And for myself, I think it's the hybrid models here to stay, particularly for office workers. I mean, obviously, when you're involved in the field of manufacturing, you can't do a hybrid model. But I do think that's something that's here to stay, and the workforce is adapted to that. Just like Lance's accounts receivable person being in Hawaii, you're going to accommodate great employees wanting to live, somewhere else where they can just be just as effective, if not more effective. So I'd just be interested in everyone. Jan, what do you think is your big thing coming out of this that's going to make that's a trend that's going to stay for good now?
I just think one of the major takeaways is that we have so many challenges, right? But with challenge comes pockets of opportunity. So I think particularly for this audience and the entrepreneurial spirit within Santa Clarita is to think about, with all this disruption, what new businesses will emerge, right, to meet the changed needs, whether it's housing for employees or supply chain pockets of opportunity. And so I just really try to encourage our team. It's very, this is a ultra endurance marathon of sorts, and we're, to your point, not through it. And so it's thinking of, it's how we build our personal resilience, maintain our physical and mental health as we press forward, but also encourage one another to see the opportunity within all of the challenge as a great place to focus energies.
Yeah, and Coach McVeigh from the Rams recorded a message for the Santa Clarita Sheriff's Department, and he had a quote in there which I thought was great, which was, "Setbacks are setups for a comeback." So that's my way of footballizing what you just said. So, Lance, what was important for you, and what do you think is a lasting thing that's going to happen in your industry?
Yeah, I think history tends to repeat itself, but I can tell you that in this instance, our suburban markets have just become so much more resilient now, and the urban markets that we were all pushing towards have cooled off a little bit. So here in Santa Clarita, you hear about everybody leaving California. Well, Santa Clarita is as hot as it gets anywhere in the country as far as the housing market goes. And so suburban Southern California is still a very, very, very popular place to be, just in spite of the challenges that we have in political environment and permitting. So I think but also other places in the Western United States where people want to live, I think that there's a little more freedom now to maybe balance your life a little bit and maybe live where you want to live versus live where your boss tells you need to live. I think that's kind of the key takeaway from what we've seen in this with the advance of technology and communication. I think that little additional freedom and most people that I know appreciate it and enjoy that.
Christian, what's your parting comment?
So I think it's interesting. So we've been around since the late 1800s, where we put a tree in the ground. It takes 5 years to start producing fruit, and it's going to do it for the next 50 years after that. So our cycle's slow. And I think, unfortunately, at times that represents through our business and our leadership as well. And I think we got ourselves into a mode of doing what we always do, going to that show, flying to that meeting, running on the treadmill time and again. And I think what we as a business and business leaders have done, and what the team that I work with has done incredibly well, is just take a pause and go, do we need to do that? Could that be a meeting that could be a Teams call? And start thinking about work-life balance a little bit more. Start being kind to each other a little bit more. Start really paying attention to how someone's day is going, not what you need to get out of them that day. And so if we can keep one thing inside our business beyond this, I would say that's the thing as leaders we will try and push for, is consider the person, not the role, more than maybe we did before we came into this, and take that with us as hopefully we get out the other side. That would be my parting thought.
Well, I know we're over time because Holly's doing jumping jacks over here. You guys can't see this to signal to me, but it's been truly a pleasure to be on the stage with these three great business leaders in Santa Clarita. And hopefully we imparted something that'd be interesting to you. And thank you, and everyone take care.
Hi, I'm Holly Schroeder, President and CEO of the Santa Clarita Valley Economic Development Corporation. You've been watching a segment recorded live at the 2021 Economic Outlook Conference. Don't forget to check out the other segments available on our YouTube channel to hear the rest of their conversations about supply chain, talent, culture, recruiting, and leadership in times of crisis and change. To learn more about the Santa Clarita Valley Economic Development Corporation, visit scvedc.org.